Good morning. Welcome to the Premium Public Video Forecast discussion for Friday, April 19th, 2024. I wanted to start off first with explaining the overall influencing factors of our weather pattern before we go into the 7-day forecast. So that way you understand exactly what we're dealing with here, all the competing factors and why the pattern is going to go back and forth at least through the next several weeks, possibly months, going into the summer. So let's get down to the basics and take a look at the sea surface temperatures and what is happening here. So our dominant influence will be in the Pacific in this discussion, but the Atlantic, as you can see, is pretty warm, and we have this cold pocket here, which we'll talk about in a moment. So first of all, in the Pacific, what do we have changing here? Well, we're losing our El Nino and we're developing our La Nina. And we can start to see the sea surface temperatures gradually cool, especially in Nino 1+2. But we're starting to see that change gradually in 3 and 3.4 and 4. But we still have these very warm anomalies, which will support pretty significant convection, right? So you have the El Nino-like influence out here, but you're starting to get changes to La Nina out here. So you kind of getting this competing influence here in terms of the El Nino Southern Oscillation influences. Meanwhile, the MJO, which I don't have shown here, is basically neutral. It's dead right now. It's very, very quiet. So your primary competing tropical influences are going to be your changes in the sea surface temperatures. But one very important one that perhaps you haven't heard a lot of is what we call the PDO. Now, during El Nino, typically you end up with a positive PDO, which is very warm water here, which helps to aid the El Nino circulation, especially as these warmer waters go down into the Central American river or sea currents, which is basically a river within the ocean, right? But when we start to change to La Nina, we get more support for a negative PDO. They usually come in tandem. Sometimes they are a little bit out of sync, so one competes with the other. In this case, with this developing La Nina, we have a very robust negative PDO signal showing up here. So what does this mean for us? Well, the negative PDO, which is basically a lot of cold water developing in the Gulf of Alaska and down the West Coast, signifies the support for a relatively broad trough over the West Coast of the United States and into the Rockies. It can at times support a trough pushing also into the plains, kind of like right around here. But the overall theme in this setup is that you start to get a ridge here, a trough here, and a southeast ridge, which I'm sure when you're dealing with La Nina, you've heard the term southeast ridge quite a bit. So this evolution, I'd say, right now is the most dominant and strongest signal in all of the forcing parameters that we have. Okay, in dealing with tropical forcing and influences of the sea surface temperatures. So we're keeping an eye on this, and you can see when we take a look at the pattern, you'll see that influence showing up very nicely. So you get this ridge that starts to get more and more established here, which sets your storm track out towards the plains and makes it more likely for severe weather out towards the plains and off towards the Great Lakes. That factor also sends a storm track and more likely warm fronts and the potential for more tropical air masses coming out of the Gulf of Mexico to surge up the coast. While that is all going on, you start to also get these influences from the northwestern Atlantic, where you have some bodies of warmer water and colder water. You have this setup here for cold front stalling and some cyclogenesis developing out here in the western Atlantic. So you have the potential here for some rogue low pressure systems popping up here and there. You have a heck of a gradient setting up off the mid-Atlantic coast with our water up here, with our Gulf Stream here and the colder water trying to contrast that. So very interesting setup going on here over the Mid-Atlantic coastal waters and the Northeast. Why is this aspect important? We'll talk about that in a moment, but just keep that in the back of your mind, right? So, in terms of tropical convection, here we have the convection firing here around the date line. You're seeing that influence, that clash between our lingering El Nino influence out here in the tropical Pacific and the development of our La Nina influences, which is going to start to kill a lot of this convection out here to the south of Mexico, which means that most likely you're going to end up with a quiet season down here over the eastern Pacific. While all that's happening, the influence of the negative PDO that's developing is influencing our polar jet, where you can see we have storm after storm marching across, and they're steadily moving towards the west coast. While all that is going on, we also have to keep an eye on what's going on in the stratosphere. Now, when we get to this time of year, you normally don't really focus on the higher latitudes because you get direct sunlight and that cools down the stratosphere quite a bit. And so, as you can see, we have some very cold anomalies out here, which you would expect with the polar vortex basically fading away at this time of year. But what I want to keep an eye on is these anomalies. Now, we talked about this quite a bit in the premium section. We've been talking about this all week. I'm bringing up in various videos. The reason why I'm watching this very carefully is that the colder shades is going to be where we're going to enhance our high pressure systems. Not necessarily where our high pressure systems are located, but it acts like as an enhancement factor. Why? When you have the stratosphere, right? The stratosphere can't expand out into space. Okay. So it contracts and expands, and that influences the contraction and expansion of the troposphere where we live, right? So when we see cold anomalies, that means the stratosphere is contracting, and that leads to expansion of the troposphere. So when we start to see these cold anomalies showing up here over the southern tier, this means that troughs are more likely to be weaker and ridges are more likely to be stronger. We're also seeing these warm anomalies here, like around the Canadian Maritimes and developing over the Pacific Northwest. Why is this important? Well, this leads, again, the stratosphere is expanding because of warmer anomalies. So the troposphere contracts. So you're more likely to get upper level lows marching across the northern tier, especially around the Canadian Maritimes, where if you get an upper level low sustained out here, then you get this northwesterly flow. You get the stronger support for maritime air masses to push in against warm air masses. This is a warning sign because when you get these warm forecasts showing up in the long range, you have to be mindful that at the lower levels of the atmosphere, we're talking about the surface up to about 925, maybe 950 millibars, there is that threat that the forecast could bust. We're talking 7, 10, 15 days out when you take a look at those anomalies. Because of the maritime air masses pushing southward and undercutting the warm air transport into the region. Meanwhile, you're seeing out here exactly where we're seeing all of our convection, very warm anomalies as well. As this feedback loop continues to develop, we're going to keep an eye out towards the dateline here, especially as this La Nina develops, whether or not we see more convection continuously forming between 150 east and 180, which is where our dateline is right in this area, because that's going to tell us exactly what type of forcing parameters are we're dealing with this La Nina, but we'll deal with that moving forward. And of course, the fact that we have cold anomalies out here is very important because that means you have high pressure dominating over the tropical Atlantic. As we move forward in time, that's going to be very important because that would allow our tropical low pressure systems to develop and head off at the very least towards either the Gulf of Mexico or towards the eastern United States in time, possibly curving out. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this, but this certainly, again, is yet another factor that would support an active season. The one anomaly I'm not confident yet in forecasting, which is why I have not put out a forecast for the tropical Atlantic yet, is I'm trying to gauge what type of influence the dust of the Sahara Desert is going to have in inhibiting some of this tropical development and for how long. So that's something I'm still working on, researching, and I'll get to the tropical forecast probably by early May. So what does that mean with our forecast here? Let me just close this off. Okay, so when we take a look at our model guidance overall, the overall theme here is that we're going to continue to keep these upper level lows spinning about over the northern tier. So we're going to have to, again, be mindful of backdoor cold fronts, slow moving patterns. These ridges are showing up here, right? Right now, 10 days out certainly look warm and with above normal temperatures. Keep an eye on the exact position of this type of trough, because this type of trough, if it backs just a little bit more, you get that high pressure system right here that could really short circuit your warm up that is being forecast right now. So that is what we're going to be challenged with. With a broad trough over the west, you get your southeast ridge very clearly here. The influence from the PDO, like I said, is showing up on all guidance here in a variety of different ways, right? But the overall theme is the same. This is a clear influence of the negative PDO, the dominant influence here right now, the key word there. So you get your broad trough out here, your ridge trying to pop out here. You get a broad trough over the west. Here's your ridge trying to build over the southeast. But again, you have these pesky features out here in the Atlantic that you have to keep an eye on. And so that's shown up here also on the GFS and also on the European ensemble guidance, the overall theme. So that's the overall theme that we're dealing with right now. When we take a look at the surface conditions right now, it's not too bad out at all. You know, you got some breaks of sun out here in central New Jersey. The sun's out for a little bit, but we also have a lot of low clouds along the coast, especially around Long Island. Temperatures range generally in the mid to upper 40s. Not a lot of rainfall. We did have some drizzle. We're not seeing a great deal of rainfall here because the lifting really just isn't all that impressive. But we have plenty of low level moisture, and that means plenty of low clouds. And take a look at the radar and surface map from WeatherTap. We have this high pressure system extending down from the Canadian Maritimes. In this scenario, the maritime air mass has won this fight. And the only way it's going to get driven out here won't be from the tropical air mass, but instead from the polar air mass that is marching its way through the Great Lakes. And this cold front will be moving through as we set up for this evening with some scattered showers. And then after that, we finally clear this air mass out. We'll still have some cloud cover hanging around this weekend, but overall, the weather pattern won't be all that bad at all for the region. So the weekend's looking much, much better. On the visible satellite picture, you can see that break that we had, and now because of the onshore flow, it's already starting to get filled up. So yeah, you might have had your sunshine for today in central and northeastern New Jersey, but unfortunately now it's all clearing up. And you can see the various movements of the cloud cover. You can see the dry patch here that's moving through. Then you can see the low level clouds here and the low level moisture coming in from the Atlantic. Here comes the moisture and the support from the polar trough and the cold front coming in from the west. So you have clouds moving at different directions in various levels in the atmosphere based on the influences. So down here you have your maritime influence. Up here you get your polar influence coming in. Down here you're getting your tropical influence here. So very interested to see these different clouds moving at different levels of the atmosphere. This is why the visible satellite picture is so much fun. On the infrared, you can see the primary lifting is back here to the west with our cold front, but notice the weakening here. Why is this weakening? Because the bulk of your cold air transport is being focused up towards the St. Lawrence River Valley and Canada. You're not really seeing that strong forcing down towards the mid-Atlantic here, so you're not getting any strong convection showing up as a result here, weakening lifting as a result. And you can see that also very nicely here on the water vapor satellite picture. There's our broad trough in the polar jet stream here. Here's your little ridge, shortwave ridge. Here's your trough. All of this is getting kicked east as this trough digs to the east towards Quebec. Not southward, but eastward. Okay, that's a very important distinction because basically our polar air mass is being focused towards Canada from west to east. It's not diving from northwest to southeast. So that's a very important distinction, which means that any polar air mass that comes in is basically being modified very, very quickly, losing. It doesn't have a lot of support. And you consider also in the upper level winds, as I described, there's our trough, there's our short wave ridge getting kicked out. Here's our trough. And again, notice we don't have I guess you call it agreement or alignment, should I say, between the subtropical and polar jet streams. They're kind of out of alignment, which is why you're seeing these troughs and ridges and other troughs and ridges marching across the south here. Because they're not in alignment, you're not going to get big storms, but you're going to get a lot of interaction of air masses and a lot of this variable cloud cover and weak but annoying rainfall. And when you take a look at the upper level forcing here, again, this is at 500 millibar PVA. We'll take a look at the next 90 hours. And you can see there's our trough moving through. There's our polar air mass. Again, like I said, the brunt of the polar air mass marches from west to east and heads into Quebec and stays well north of us. But we kind of get a glancing blow to keep our temperatures a little cool this weekend, but not too abnormally cold. Just a little annoying. You might need a hoodie through the weekend and into early next week. But then as the pattern evolves and with more and more influence from that negative PDO influence, you see that ridge building and you see the support here. But I'm watching this feature out here as we move through the 10-day period to see if this digs and becomes more robust than what's being shown here, because that would lead to more of a backdoor cold front being an issue here. If not, you can see the surge of warm air here. So we certainly are heading towards warmer times. But whether or not that lasts very long or we get replaced with a Pacific air mass or a maritime air mass, we'll have to watch very, very carefully. So that's going to be the thing we're going to be watching over the next 5 days to see whether that change in the 10-day forecast takes place. So let's dive into the forecast for today. Look for a scattered to broken cloud cover with temperatures rising into the lower to mid 50s on the immediate coast, mid to upper 50s over the interior, upper 50s to lower 60s in the Delaware River Valley. There's still a threat for a few isolated showers here and there and some drizzle. For tonight into tomorrow morning, the cold front moves through with some scattered showers. Not looking for any heavy downpours or anything. For the most part, by about 10 a.m., most of these showers will be off the coast and moving away, with low temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 40s over the northern interior, upper 40s to lower 50s along the coast. Tomorrow afternoon, look for scattered to broken cloud cover with high temperatures ranging from the upper 50s to lower 60s over the northern interior, mid to upper 60s along the coast. For Sunday, high pressure builds in, but we'll still be dealing with some high clouds here and there. So you're going to have filtered sun. That'd be the best way to describe it, with low temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 30s over the northern interior, upper 30s to lower 40s along the coast. High temperatures will range from the lower to mid 50s over the northern interior, mid to upper 50s along the coast. On Monday, high pressure and complete control with sky cloud cover. Look for low temperatures in the mid to upper 30s over the northern interior, upper 30s to lower 40s along the coast. High temperatures ranging from the upper 50s to lower 60s over the northern interior, lower to mid 60s along the coast. On Tuesday, high pressure passes through the region with tranquil conditions expected. Look for low temperatures in the mid to upper 30s over the northern interior, upper 30s to lower 40s along the coast. High temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 60s. On Wednesday, a cold front will move through in the afternoon hours with scattered showers. Look for low temperatures ranging from the mid 40s and high temperatures ranging from the upper 50s to lower 60s over the northern interior and along the coast, lower to mid 60s in the Delaware River Valley. On Thursday, high pressure takes control with scattered cloud cover and chilly conditions as a polar air mass clips through the region. Look for low temperatures in the lower to mid 20s over the northern interior, upper 20s to lower 30s along the coast. High temperatures in the upper 40s to lower 50s over the northern interior, mid 50s along the coast. And on Friday, next Friday, tranquil conditions, sunny out, but a little bit cool, with low temperatures ranging from the upper 20s to lower 30s over the northern interior, lower to mid 30s along the coast. High temperatures in the mid 50s over the interior and along the coast, upper 50s to lower 60s in the Delaware River Valley. That is your forecast discussion for today. Have a wonderful day, and as always, stay safe out there.